Pollyanna, chapter 17, just like a book. John Pendleton greeted Pollyanna today with a smile. Well, Miss Pollyanna, I'm thinking you must be a very forgiving little person, else you wouldn't have come to see me again today. Why, Mr. Pendleton, I was real glad to come, and I'm sure I don't see why I shouldn't be either. Oh, well, I was pretty cross with you, I'm afraid, both the other day when you so kindly brought me the jelly and that time when you found me with a broken leg at first. By the way, too, I don't think I ever thanked you for that. Now, I'm sure that even you would admit that you were very forgiving to come and see me after such ungrateful treatment as that. Pollyanna stirred uneasily. Well, I was glad to find you. That is, I don't mean I was glad your leg was broken, of course, she corrected hurriedly. John Pendleton smiled. I understand. Your tongue does get away with you once in a while, doesn't it, Miss Pollyanna? I do thank you, however, and I consider you a very brave little girl to do what you did that day. I thank you for the jelly, too, he added in a lighter voice. Did you like it? Asked Pollyanna with interest. Very much, I suppose. There isn't any more today that Aunt Polly didn't send, is there? He asked with an odd smile. His visitor looked distressed. No, sir, she hesitated, then went on with heightened color. Please, Mr. Pendleton, I didn't mean to be rude the other day when I said Aunt Polly did not send the jelly. There was no answer. John Pendleton was not smiling now. He was looking straight ahead of him with eyes that seemed to be gazing through and beyond the object before them. After a time, he drew a long sigh and turned to Pollyanna. When he spoke, his voice carried the old nervous fretfulness. Well, this will never do at all. I didn't send for you to see me moping this time. Listen, out in the library, the big room where the telephone is, you'll find a carved box on the lower shelf of the big case with glass doors in the corner not far from the fireplace. That is, it'll be there if that confounded woman hasn't regulated it somewhere else. You may bring it to me. It's heavy, but not too heavy for you to carry, I think. Oh, I'm awfully strong, declared Pollyanna cheerfully as she sprang to her feet. In a minute, she had returned with the box. It was a wonderful half hour that Pollyanna spent then. The box was full of treasures, curios that John Pendleton had picked up in years of travel, and concerning each there was some entertaining story, whether it were a set of exquisitely carved chessmen from China or a little jade idol from India. It was after she had heard the story about the idol that Pollyanna murmured wistfully, well, I suppose it would be better to take a little boy in India to bring up, one that didn't know any more than to think that God was in that doll thing, than it would be to take Jimmy Bean, a little boy who knows God is up there in the sky. Still, I can't help wishing they had wanted Jimmy Bean too, besides the Indian boys. John Pendleton did not seem to hear. Again, his eyes were staring straight before him, looking at nothing. But soon he had roused himself and had picked up another curio to talk about. The visit certainly was a delightful one, but before it was over, Pollyanna was realizing that they were talking about something besides the wonderful things in the beautiful carved box. They were talking of herself, of Nancy, of Aunt Polly, and of her daily life. They were talking, too, even of the life and home long ago in the far western town. Not until it was nearly time for her to go did the man say in a voice Pollyanna had never heard from stern John Pendleton, Little girl, I want you to come see me often, will you? I'm lonesome and I need you. There's another reason, and I'm going to tell you that too. I thought at first after I found out who you were the other day that I didn't want you to know or to come anymore. You reminded me of something I have tried for long years to forget. So I said to myself that I never wanted to see you again, and every day when the doctor asked if I wouldn't let him bring you to me, I said no. But after a time I found I was wanting to see you so much that the fact that I wasn't seeing you was making me remember all the more vividly the thing I was so wanting to forget. So now I want you to come. Will you, little girl?" "Why, yes, Mr. Pendleton," breathed Pollyanna, her eyes luminous with sympathy for the sad-faced man lying back on the pillow before her. "I'd love to come." "Thank you," said John Pendleton gently. After supper that evening, Pollyanna, sitting on the back porch, told Nancy all about Mr. John Pendleton's wonderful carved box and the still more wonderful things it contained. "And to think," sighed Nancy, "that he showed you all them things and told you all about 'em like that. Him that's so cross he never talks to no one. No one." "Oh, but he isn't cross, Nancy, only outside," demurred Pollyanna with quick loyalty. "I don't see why everybody thinks he's so bad either. They wouldn't if they knew him. But even Aunt Polly doesn't like him very well. She wouldn't send the jelly to him, you know, and she was so afraid he'd think she did send it." "Probably she didn't call him no duty," shrugged Nancy, "but what beats me is how he happened to take after you so, Miss Pollyanna. Meaning no offense to you, of course, but he ain't the sort of man that generally likes to talk to kids. He ain't. He ain't." Pollyanna smiled happily. "But he did, Nancy," she nodded. "Only I reckon even he didn't want to all the time. Why, only today he owned up that one time he just felt he never wanted to see me again because I reminded him of something he wanted to forget. But afterwards—" "What's that?" interrupted Nancy excitedly. "He said you reminded him of something he wanted to forget?" "Yes, but afterwards." "What was it?" Nancy was eagerly insistent. "He didn't tell me. He just said it was something." "The mystery," breathed Nancy in an awestruck voice. "That's why he took to you in the first place." "Oh, Miss Pollyanna, why, that's just like a book. I've read a lot of them. Lady Maud's Secret and The Lost Heir and Hidden for Years. All of them had mysteries and things just like this. My stars and stockings, just think of having a book lived right under your nose like this and me not knowing it all this time." "Now tell me everything, everything he said, Miss Pollyanna. There's a dear, no wonder he took to you. No wonder. No wonder." "But he didn't," cried Pollyanna. "Not till I talked to him first. And he didn't even know who I was till I took the calf's-foot jelly and had to make him understand that Aunt Polly didn't send it, and—" Nancy sprang to her feet and clasped her hands together suddenly. "Oh, Miss Pollyanna, I know, I know, I know, I know." She exulted rapturously. The next minute she was down at Miss Pollyanna's side again. "Tell me, now think, and answer straight and true," she urged excitedly. "It was after he found out you were Miss Polly's niece that he said he didn't ever want to see you again, wasn't it?" "Oh, yes, I told him that the last time I saw him, and he told me this today." "I thought as much," triumphed Nancy. "And Miss Polly wouldn't send the jelly herself, would she?" "No." "And you told him she didn't send it?" "Why, yes, And he began to act queer and cry out suddenly after he found out you were her niece? He did that, didn't he?" "Why, yes, he did act a little queer over the jelly," admitted Pollyanna with a thoughtful frown. Nancy drew a long sigh. "Then I've got it, sure. Now listen. Mr. John Pendleton was Miss Polly Harrington's lover," she announced impressively, but with a furtive glance over her shoulder. "Why, Nancy, he couldn't be. She doesn't like him," objected Pollyanna. Nancy gave her a scornful glance. "Of course she doesn't. That's the quarrel." Pollyanna still looked incredulous, and in another long breath, Nancy happily settled herself to tell the story. "It's like this. Just before you come, Mr. Tom told me Miss Polly had had a lover once. I didn't believe it. I couldn't. Her and a lover? But Mr. Tom said she had, and that he was living now right in this town. And now I know, of course, it's John Pendleton. Ain't he got a mystery in his life? Don't he shut himself up in that grand house alone and never speak to no one? Didn't he act queer when he found out you was Miss Polly's niece? And now hain't he owned up that you remind him of something he wants to forget? Just as if anybody couldn't see 'twas Miss Polly, and her saying she wouldn't send him no jelly too. Why, Miss Pollyanna, it's as plain as the nose on your face. It is, it is. Oh, breathed Pollyanna in wide-eyed amazement. But Nancy, I should think if they loved each other, they'd make up sometime. Both of them all alone, so all these years, I should think they'd be glad to make up. Nancy sniffed disdainfully. I guess maybe you don't know much about lovers, Miss Pollyanna. You ain't big enough yet anyhow, but if there is a set of folks in the world that wouldn't have no use for that air, glad game or urine, it'll be a pair of quarreling lovers, and that's what they be. Ain't he cross as sticks most generally, and ain't she? Nancy stopped abruptly, remembering just in time to whom and about whom she was speaking. Suddenly, however, she chuckled. I ain't saying, though, Miss Pollyanna, but what it would be a pretty slick piece of business if you could get 'em playing it so they would be glad to make up. But my land, wouldn't folks stare some, Miss Polly and him. I guess, though, there ain't much chance. Much chance. Pollyanna said nothing, but when she went into the house a little later, her face was very thoughtful. Chapter 18, Prisms. As the warm August days passed, Pollyanna went very frequently to the great house on Pendleton Hill. She did not feel, however, that her visits were really a success. Not but that the man seemed to want her there. He sent for her, indeed frequently, but that when she was there, he seemed scarcely any the happier for her presence. At least, so Pollyanna thought. He talked to her, it was true, and he showed her many strange and beautiful things, books, pictures, and curios, but he still fretted audibly over his own helplessness, and he chafed visibly under the rules and regulatings of the unwelcome members of his household. He did indeed seem to like to hear Pollyanna talk, however, and Pollyanna talked. Pollyanna liked to talk, but she was never sure that she would not look up and find him lying back on his pillow with that white, hurt look that always pained her. And she was never sure which, if any, of her words that brought it there. As for telling him the glad game and trying to get him to play it, Pollyanna had never seen the time yet when she thought he would care to hear about it. She had twice tried to tell him, but neither time had she got beyond the beginning of what her father had said. John Pendleton had on each occasion turned the conversation abruptly to another subject. Pollyanna never doubted now that John Pendleton was her Aunt Polly's one-time lover, and with all the strength of her loving, loyal heart, she wished she could in some way bring happiness into their, to her mind, immeasurably lonely lives. Just how she was to do this, however, she could not see. She talked to Mr. Pendleton about her aunt, and he listened, sometimes politely, sometimes irritably, frequently with a quizzical smile on his usually stern lips. She talked to her aunt about Mr. Pendleton, or rather she tried to talk to her about him. As a general thing, however, Miss Polly would not listen long. She always found something else to talk about. She frequently did that, however, when Pollyanna was talking of others. Of Dr. Chilton, for instance. Pollyanna laid this, though, to the fact that it had been Dr. Chilton who had seen her in the sun parlor with a rose in her hair and the lace shawl draped around her shoulders. Aunt Polly indeed seemed particularly bitter against Dr. Chilton, as Pollyanna found out one day when a hard cold shut her up in the house. If you're not better by night, I shall send for the doctor, Aunt Polly said. Shall you? Then I'm going to be worse, gurgled Pollyanna. I'd love to have Dr. Chilton come to see me. She wondered then at the look that came to her aunt's face. It will not be Dr. Chilton, Pollyanna, Miss Polly said sternly. Dr. Chilton is not our family physician. I will send for Dr. Warren if you are worse. Pollyanna did not grow worse, however, and Dr. Warren was not summoned. And I'm so glad too, Pollyanna said to her aunt that evening. Of course I like Dr. Warren and all that, but I like Dr. Chilton better, and I'm afraid he'd feel hurt if I didn't have him. You see, he wasn't really to blame after all that he happened to see you when I dressed you up pretty that day, Aunt Polly, she finished wistfully. That will do, Pollyanna. I really do not wish to discuss Dr. Chilton or his feelings, reproved Miss Polly decisively. Pollyanna looked at her for a moment with mournfully interested eyes. Then she sighed. I just love to see you when your cheeks are pink like that, Aunt Polly. But I would so like to fix your hair. Well, Aunt Polly, but her aunt was already out of sight and down the hall. It was towards the end of August that Pollyanna, making an early morning call on John Pendleton, found the flaming band of blue and gold and green edged with red and violet lying across his pillow. She stopped short in awed delight. Why, Mr. Pendleton, it's a baby rainbow, a real rainbow, come up to pay you a visit, she exclaimed, clapping her hands together softly. Oh, oh, how pretty it is. But how did it get in? She cried. The man laughed a little grimly. John Pendleton was particularly out of sorts with the world this morning. Well, I suppose it got in through the beveled edge of that glass thermometer in the window, he said wearily. The sun didn't strike it at all, but it does in the morning. Oh, but it's so pretty, Mr. Pendleton. And does just the sun do that? My, if it was mine, I'd have it hang in the sun all day long. Lots of good you'd get out of the thermometer then, laughed the man. How do you suppose you could tell how hot it was or how cold it was if the thermometer hung in the sun all day? I shouldn't care, breathed Pollyanna, her fascinated eyes on the brilliant band of colors across the pillow. Just as if anybody'd care, when they were living all the time in a rainbow. The man laughed. He was watching Pollyanna's rapt face a little curiously. Suddenly, a new thought came to him. He touched the bell at his side. Nora, he said when the elderly maid appeared at the door, bring me one of the big brass candlesticks from the mantel in the front drawing room. Yes, sir, murmured the woman, looking slightly dazed. In a minute she had returned. A musical tinkling entered the room with her as she advanced wonderingly towards the bed. It came from the prism pendants encircling the old-fashioned candelabrum in her hand. Thank you. You may set it here on the stand, directed the man. Now get a string and fasten it to the sash curtain fixtures of that window there. Take down the sash curtain and let the string reach straight across the window from side to side. That will be all. Thank you, he said when she had carried out his directions. As she left the room, he turned, smiling eyes toward the wondering Pollyanna. Bring me the candlestick now, please, Pollyanna. With both hands she brought it, and in a moment he was slipping off the pendants one by one until they lay a dozen round of them side by side on the bed. Now, my dear, I suppose you take them and hook them to that little string Nora fixed across the window. If you really want to live in a rainbow, I don't see, but we'll have to have a rainbow for you to live in. Pollyanna had not hung up 3 of the pendants in the sunlight window before she saw a little of what was going to happen. She was so excited that she could scarcely control her shaking fingers enough to hang up the rest. But at last, her task was finished, and she stepped back with a low cry of delight. It had become a fairyland, that sumptuous but dreary bedroom. Everywhere were bits of dancing red and green, violet and orange, gold and blue. The wall, the floor, and the furniture, even to the bed itself, were aflame with shimmering bits of color. Oh, 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 how lovely, breathed Pollyanna. Then she laughed suddenly. I just reckon the sun himself is trying to play the game now, don't you? She cried, forgetting for the moment that Mr. Pendleton could not know what she was talking about. Oh, how I wish I had a lot of those things. How I would like to give them to Aunt Polly and Mrs. Snow and lots of folks, I reckon. Then they'd be glad all right. Well, I think even Aunt Polly'd get so glad she couldn't help banging doors if she lived in a rainbow like that, don't you? Mr. Pendleton laughed. Well, from my remembrance of your aunt, Miss Pollyanna, I must say I think it would take something more than a few prisms in the sunlight to make her bang many doors for gladness. But come now, really, what do you mean? Pollyanna stared slightly, but she drew a long breath. Oh, I forgot you don't know about the game, I remember now. Suppose you tell me then. And this time Pollyanna told him. She told him the whole thing from the very first. From the crutches that should have been a doll. As she talked, she did not look at his face. Her rapt eyes were still on the dancing flecks of color from the prism pendant swaying in the sunlight window. And that's all, she sighed when she had finished. And now you know why I said the sun was trying to play it. That game. For a moment there was silence. Then a very low voice from the bed said unsteadily, Perhaps, but I'm thinking that the very finest prism of them all is yourself, Pollyanna. Oh, but I don't show beautiful red and green and purple when the sun shines through me, Mr. Pendleton. Don't you? Smiled the man, and Pollyanna, looking into his face, wondered why there were tears in his eyes. No, she said. Then after a minute she added mournfully, I'm afraid, Mr. Pendleton, the sun doesn't make anything but freckles out of me. Aunt Polly says it does make them. The man laughed a little, and again Pollyanna looked at him. The laugh had sounded almost like a sob. Chapter 19, which is something surprising. Pollyanna entered school in September. Preliminary examination showed that she was well advanced for a girl of her years, and she was soon a happy member of a class of girls and boys her own age. School, in some ways, was a surprise to Pollyanna, and Pollyanna certainly, in many ways, was very much of a surprise to school. They were soon on the best of terms, however, and to her aunt, Pollyanna confessed that going to school was living, after all, though she had had her doubts before. In spite of her delight in her new work, Pollyanna did not forget her old friends. True, she could not give them quite so much time now, of course, but she gave them what time she could. Perhaps John Pendleton, of them all, however, was the most dissatisfied. One Saturday afternoon, he spoke to her about it. See here, Pollyanna, how would you like to come and live with me? He asked a little impatiently. I don't see anything of you nowadays. Pollyanna laughed. Mr. Pendleton was such a funny man. I thought you didn't like to have folks around, she said. He made a wry face. Oh, but that was before you taught me to play that wonderful game of yours. Now I'm glad to be waited on hand and foot. Never mind, I'll be on my own 2 feet yet one of these days. Then I'll see who steps around, he finished, picking up one of the crutches at his side and shaking it playfully at the little girl. They were sitting in the great library today. Oh, but you weren't really glad at all for things. You just say you are, pouted Pollyanna, her eyes on the dog dozing before the fire. You know you don't play the game right, ever, Mr. Pendleton. You know you don't. The man's face grew suddenly very grave. That's why I want you, little girl, to help me play it. Will you come? Miss Pollyanna turned in surprise. Mr. Pendleton, you don't really mean that. But I do. I want you. Will you come? Pollyanna looked distressed. Why, Mr. Pendleton, I can't. You know I can't. Well, I'm Aunt Polly's. A quick something crossed the man's face that Pollyanna could not quite understand. His head came up almost fiercely. You're no more hers than... Perhaps she would let you come to me, he finished more gently. Would you come if she did? Pollyanna frowned in deep thought. But Aunt Polly has been so good to me, she began slowly, and she took me when I didn't have anybody left but the ladies' aid, and again that spasm of something crossed the man's face, but this time, when he spoke, his voice was low and very sad. Pollyanna, long years ago I loved somebody very much. I hope to bring her someday to this house. I pictured how happy we'd be together in our home all the long years to come. Yes, pitied Pollyanna, her eyes shining with sympathy. But, well, I didn't bring her here. Never mind why I just didn't, that's all. And even since then, this great pile of stone has been a house, never a home. It takes a woman's hand and heart or a child's presence to make a home, Pollyanna, and I've not had either. Now, will you come, my dear? Pollyanna sprang to her feet. Her face was fairly illuminated. Mr. Pendleton, you mean that you wish you had that woman's hand and heart all this time? Why, yes, Pollyanna. Oh, I'm so glad. Then it's all right, sighed the little girl. Now you can take us both, and everything will be lovely. Take you both? Repeated the man, dazzledly. A faint doubt crossed Pollyanna's countenance. Well, of course, Aunt Polly isn't won over yet, but I'm sure she will be if you tell it to her just as you did to me, and then we'd both come, of course. A look of actual terror leaped to the man's eyes. Aunt Polly come here? Pollyanna's eyes widened a little. Would you rather go there? She asked. Of course, the house isn't quite so pretty, but it's near. Pollyanna, what are you talking about? Asked the man very gently now. Why, about where we're going to live, of course, rejoined Pollyanna in obvious surprise. I thought you meant here at first. You said it was here that you'd wanted Aunt Polly's hand and heart all these years to make a home, and cry came from the man's throat. He raised his hand and began to speak, but the next moment he dropped his hand nervously at his side. The doctor, sir, said the maid in the doorway. Pollyanna rose at once. John Pendleton turned to her feverishly. Pollyanna, for heaven's sake, say nothing of what I ask you. Yet, he begged in a low voice. Pollyanna dimpled into a sunny smile. Of course not, just as if I didn't know you'd rather tell her yourself, she called back merrily over her shoulder. John Pendleton fell limply back in the chair. Well, what's up? Demanded the doctor a minute later, his fingers on his patient's galloping pulse. A whimsical smile trembled on John Pendleton's lip. Overdose of your tonic, I guess, he laughed as he noted the doctor's eyes following Pollyanna's little figure down the driveway. End of chapter 19.